In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brakes on this 535i xDrive. These are going to be located behind the front wheels. Let's get into it. I'm going to remove the lug bolts. Use a 17mm socket. Take those out. Before I take the last one out, I'm just going to hold the wheel on so it doesn't fall. Pull the wheel off. When you're replacing the brake pads on the driver's side, you're going to have to disconnect the brake pad wear sensor, and it's always a good idea to replace that while you're doing it. We're going to take this clip off. I'm just going to use some needle nose pliers and a pry bar. Just pop that off. You just got that center tab that has to come out and it twists out. Before we take the caliper off, we're just going to crack the bleeder screw free, so when we compress the piston later, we can open that up to get the dirty fluid out. There's a little cap here. Pop that cap off. Use a 10mm wrench. Just loosen it up and then just snug it up just so the fluid doesn't leak out. Now we're going to take these caps off. I'm just going to use a pick. You could just use a pocket screwdriver if you want to. Pop those out. Using a 7mm hex socket, we're going to take those two bolts out. And pull that out. Now we're going to pull the caliper off. Use a small pry bar and just pry slightly. You're going to compress the piston just a little bit, just so you can get it past. Otherwise, it's not going to pass the bracket. Just in between the rotor and the brake pad. There we go. Then you can slide that off. Take the old brake pads out. This one slides down. It's clipped in. The other side pops up. Take the brake caliper. I'm using a brake caliper hanger. I'm just going to hang it from the coil spring. I'm going to take the bracket off. Use a 16mm socket. Take these two bolts out. Those out, grab the bracket, slide it off. Now we're going to remove the rotor. Use a 6mm hex socket. We're going to take this screw out. And then you should just be able to pull the rotor off. If it doesn't come off that easy, just take a hammer and just tap it at those areas. Using a wire brush, we're going to clean up some of the corrosion on the hub surface. I'm just going to use some anti-seize, just give it a squirt, just to prevent the rotor from sticking to the hub in the future. Before we put the rotor on, we just want to clean it. Use a little brake parts cleaner on the back side. Take a rag, wipe it off, flip it around. Now we're going to clean the front side. Spray it down, wipe it off with a rag. Now put the rotor on. Get this hole lined up with the smaller threaded hole. And take the screw, get that started. And we'll just snug this up, not too tight. Now we're going to clean up the bracket. Just use a wire brush. Now we want to clean up these pins. You can use a wire brush if you need to. And then just some brake parts cleaner. Wipe them down with a rag. Now take some silicone lubricant or some brake caliper grease, lubricate the pins. Now take the bracket, slide it over the rotor. Get the bolt started. Tighten those down. Now we'll torque these bolts to 81 foot-pounds. Now we're just going to compress the piston. We're using a caliper compressing tool. I'm just going to use one of the old brake pads just to give me a little bit of room, like a shim. Just get it all set up first. All right, before we start compressing it, flip this over, because we want to open that bleeder screw while we're compressing it. Take my 10mm wrench, put it over the bleeder screw, and just to keep it from making a mess, I'm going to use a hose with a bottle. Open that up. Now that's open. As we compress it, you're going to see some brake fluid go through the hose. Just go nice and slow. That's good. It's all the way down. Now close the bleeder screw. You can remove the hose. Just try to snug this up as much as you can. That's good. Remove the compressing tool. And the extra brake pad. Just make sure there's no rips or tears in the boot and that the boot is not inflated. Otherwise, you're just gonna pop it to the side a little bit, let the air out. Now take the new brake pads, the one with the clip on it that looks like this, that's gonna go into the piston. Slide that into the piston. Just like that. This one doesn't have a clip. We're just going to slide that into the bracket right there and slide the caliper over. That's good. Take the pins. The longer one's going to go on the bottom, shorter one up top. Get those started. And now we'll torque these to 26 foot-pounds. And put the caps on. And now we'll take the wrench, 10mm wrench, and just tighten down the bleeder screw. Now that the caliper is attached, snug that down tight. Put the cap on. Now we're going to put the spring clip on. I get the one side lined up. Then this little tab is going to go in the center here. I'm just using a trim tool. You can just use some type of prying tool. And then down below here, we're going to pry this piece. Get that to line up. It can take a little bit of effort to try to get this in. There we go. Push that in. That looks good. Now we're going to check the brake fluid level in the master cylinder. We're going to take some panels off. We're going to remove this weather strip. Just pull up out of the way. You can just move it out of the way or take it off completely. Using a 13mm socket, we're going to loosen up this wing nut. Just going to turn about 90 degrees. And then there's a little clip right here. Just take a straight blade screwdriver, get underneath that clip, pop that out. You can grab this panel, slide it up. That's where your cabin air filter is. Panel right here, take that out, just lift it up. I'm going to take this little lock off. Just going to use a straight blade screwdriver. There's a little lever right here. You can lift up on that, slide that out. Using the 13mm socket, loosen up this wing nut here. There's one right here, and then one right here. Just twist them to the left. There's a screw right here. I'm just going to use a Phillips head screwdriver. Take that screw out. Take that out. Grab this panel, just slide it up, out of the way. And now you can check the brake fluid level and adjust accordingly. I'm going to wipe the top of the reservoir off, just to make sure no dirt or debris gets in there when we take the cap off. Loosen up the cap. And we'll set that aside. And now we're going to add the new fluid. You can check right on the reservoir. It tells you what type of fluid to use. This vehicle says .4, so we're going to use this. And just fill it up. Make sure it's a new container of fluid. And there is a max line on the side here. So you want to fill it up to that max line. And we'll put the cap back on. Snug that. Get this lined up. Make sure that's in place. That looks good. Now take the screw. Get that lined up. Snug that down using the socket. Now tighten these wing nuts. Right there, all the way over here. That's good. This lock, line this up, and just push it, lock it in place. This cover, line this up, get that in place. Cover for the cabin air filter. There's some ears on the back. You want to slide those right into those slots. And then tip it down. Take this bar, lock that down. Take the wing nut, just twist it 90 degrees. Now the weather strip, get this to line up. Go. Now install the wheel. Get the holes lined up. Take the lug bolt, get that started. Snug that down. And we'll get the other one started. Snug those down. Now we're going to torque the lug nuts to 90 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. Just go around again, double check.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.